What is going on, everyone? Uh, Hope you all are doing well. Welcome to Big Tony Speaks. Uh, I'm Big Tony, your host, and yet once again today I am multi-streaming to both YouTube and uh, Rumble. Hopefully, I get some YouTube viewers today. Uh, as you all know, I abandoned my YouTube account. All right. Uh, as you all know, I abandoned my YouTube account. Just left it pretty much empty, except for a couple of little goofy short videos, and just was using it so that when I went into people's chats and comment sections, my Big Tony Speaks logo would show there instead of just my initials like everybody else. Um, an attempt to advertise for my show here on Rumble, and I decided that doing so, leaving that just sitting idle, was a waste. So I figured out how to multi-stream because the normal way through Rumble Studio was not working. So I figured out a roundabout workaround, and we got this thing going. Um, so anyway, today we're going to be talking about the Iran protest, but first I want to make y'all aware of something. Let me share something with you all. There, everybody should be seeing that now. Um, Certain things I have to do separately for YouTube and Rumble. So, yeah, everybody should be seeing that now. Um, the ICE agent who fatally shot leftist activist Renee Good as she tried to run him over, he suffered internal bleeding in his torso. That was, you remember, when I reported on this originally, I mentioned that he did have to go to the hospital to be treated for injuries incurred when she hit him. And well, they didn't release immediately what the injuries were, and now we now have reports that he suffered from internal injuries, internal bleeding in his torso. So let me go read this article here for you. The ICE agent who fatally shot the woman who tried to run him over during a lawful immigration operation in Minneapolis last week there's Maryland, suffered internal bleeding to his torso. Renee Good was fatally shot after she used her vehicle as a weapon as ICE agents descended on a neighborhood in Minneapolis last week. President Trump and DHS Chief Kristi Noem previously said the ICE agent was taken to a hospital and treated. They just never said what kind of injuries he had. Quote, I have just viewed the clip of the event, which took place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self defense, President Trump said on Truth Social last week. Based on the attached clip, it is hard to believe he is alive, but it is now recovering in the hospital. The situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. CBS News reported the Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent who fatally shot Renee Good last week in Minneapolis, Jonathan Ross, uh, since he was doxxed, we know who he is. Jonathan Ross suffered internal bleeding to the torso following the incident, according to two U.S. officials briefed on his medical condition. It was unclear how extensive the bleeding was. CBS News has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for more information and has not yet received a reply. This story will be updated as we learn more. Videos from the scene showed Ross walking away after the incident. Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, previously acknowledged that Ross was taken to the hospital after the shooting and was released the same day. She said he was recovering from his injuries, describing him as an experienced law enforcement officer who believed he was defending himself and fellow agents. Point of view cell phone footage from the ICE agent involved in the fatal shooting of Renee Nicole Good was released last Friday. The POV footage shows Good's romantic partner talking trash to the ICE agent as he approached her wife's SUV. I I have gotten some reports recently that they were not even actually married. They just called each other wives. They just called themselves married. They weren't actually married, hadn't been uh, uh, actually married by a judge or whatever, or some officiant with a marriage license or any of that. They were just partners, lovers, whatever you want to call them. Quote, "You want to come at us?" Good's partner said, taunting the ICE agent. "I say, go get yourself some lunch, big boy." And then, quote, "Get out of the effing car," an ICE agent said as he tried to open Good's door. Um, Good accelerates her vehicle as her partner shouted, "Drive, baby, drive." And in fact, I have demonstrated through the video that the accelerator didn't get hit until she did say, "Drive, baby, drive." So the driver was, Renee Nicole Good, was following instructions from her and not the ICE agents. The ICE agent shouted, "Whoa," as he fatally shot Good. He said whoa because he got hit. You know, I mean, that's what the whoa was. And here is that video, yet once again, keep it fresh in your mind.
This is what happens to a 40-year-old man when he only washes his hair with a DHT blocking.
This is not a scam, but this ginger trick erased my forehead lines. This is the ginger trick that made me look 40.
I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking veteran. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
Whoa! See, he was saying whoa because he got hit. He was saying whoa because he got hit. But yeah, I have received reports. They're unsubstantiated reports, unconfirmed. I I usually don't like to report on something unless it's been confirmed in some way or another. But unconfirmed, unsubstantiated, at least by me, reports that they're not married. That is not her actual wife. She is not married to her. They haven't been, you know, uh, united in holy matrimony or unholy matrimony in this case. Um, by an officiant with a license and all that. So, but the point that I wanted to stress is the injuries that he received. He received internal injuries. Now, I have, I know I'm a fat now, but I wasn't always. I used to be pretty darn healthy, and I used to literally, you know, because I was in martial arts and all that, and you know, I believed myself to be pretty darn tough, and I would let other people just wail on my torso, on my gut, as hard as they could. And I never received any type of internal injuries. So I'm going to guess that you have to take a pretty good impact to receive internal injuries, especially with all that gear on, protecting you. I would assume that you would have to be hit pretty hard to take internal damage. It's one thing to bruise the outside or cause some sort of injury to the muscle and the fat layer. Everybody has a fat layer. Depends on how thick it is. But mine's pretty thick, by the way. But I would assume that you would have to take a pretty good wallop to catch internal injuries, to cause internal bleeding in your abdomen, in your torso. Um, I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just speaking from personal experience. I did some martial art tournaments and whatnot, and I've taken some good hard punches and kicks, and in my private life, I've been hit, I've been stabbed, shot, uh, beaten with a baseball bat, hit with cars. You know, I've had my pretty good fair share of injuries, and from all different types of sources. You know, I spent some time as a carny, so I got injured quite a bit during that time. Rides, people, you name it. So I mean, so from my experience of being injured, being hit in the torso and etc., I'm going to say that you have to be hit pretty hard to get internal bleeding. I've never had such an injury. You know, maybe maybe some of you out there in Rumble or YouTube land have some experience with that and can, or maybe you're a physician or a nurse or something of that nature in the medical field and can tell me just just how hard of a hit would it have to be to cause internal injuries. I would greatly appreciate someone with that knowledge to actually let me know what the reality medically is in that. Um, Hearing weird noises. and not through my headphones. Anyway. All right. And just to let you all know, Tuesday night is usually my normal night going on the Killer Carl podcast, but that night is going to be tonight as soon as I receive the link. And so tonight's episode is going to be, fairly short. We're going to try to keep it short, but when that time comes, if it comes while I'm still on here, I would like for you all to come over there to Killer Carl's podcast and to show him some love. Hit that, give him a thumbs up, and if you're not following, follow him. That would be awesome. Because I'm over on his podcast, quite often, and I tell everybody who's watching when I go over there to come show us some love over there. So anyway, let's move on to the next story. Okay, let's see here. There we go. Now, this is subject that was on my thumbnail. The Iran protests, why this time looks different. And this is actually right here. This is actually a picture not from the current protests, but from previous protests that they've had. Every few years, Iran experiences anti-regime protests. Each time, American pundits and the Iranian diaspora predict the fall of the regime because they've been hoping and praying for that for so long. Each time, protesters call for help from abroad. Each time, people die, and after several days or weeks, the government regains control. Opponents of the regime are jailed or killed, and the country returns to lockdown. This time, however, there appears to be a real chance that protests could finally bring an end to the regime. Two factors are different. First, the scale and tenacity of the resistance appear unprecedented compared to previous protests. Second, Donald Trump is sitting in the White House. Yeah. I don't know what, if anything, he's going to do, but he has said that he is probably going to step in some way, shape, or form. Nationwide anti-government protests erupted on December 28th, 2025, when shopkeepers in Tehran's Grand Bazaar closed their businesses in response to the collapse of Iran's currency and soaring inflation. Demonstrations spread rapidly to all 31 provinces and at least 100 cities, drawing tens of thousands of participants in major urban centers and smaller towns alike. What began as economic protests quickly transformed into mass political demonstrations demanding the end of the Islamic Republic. Protesters chanted slogans such as "Death to the dictator" and "Death to Khamenei," while others called for the return of the Shah, or Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's last monarch, signaling a shift from reformist demands to explicit calls for regime change. Demonstrators stormed government buildings in multiple cities, including government offices, judiciary buildings, and Foundation of Martyrs offices. On January 8th, Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi called for a peaceful transition and a referendum on Iran's political future, a message echoed by demonstrators chanting monarchist slogans. Iran's security forces responded with an exceptionally violent crackdown under cover of a near total internet blackout, making the true scale of killings difficult to verify. Forces including the Basij militia, and reportedly reinforcements from Iraqi militias used sniper fire, live ammunition, machine guns, tear gas grenades, and pellet guns. Pellet guns? Okay. U.S.-based human rights monitors report death tolls ranging from 217 to more than 2,400, including at least 12 children, while reports from inside Iran suggest the number may reach several thousand or more. Authorities imposed mass arrests exceeding 16,000 people and initiated expedited trials, including death sentences. Hospitals and morgues have been overwhelmed. Bodies have accumulated at forensic centers, and eyewitnesses describe cities resembling war zones. Strikes have spread across bazaars, shops, and energy sectors, further worsening the economic crisis. The protests are unfolding amid major geopolitical setbacks for Iran. Israel dismantled Iran's regional strategy by destroying Hamas in Gaza, severely degrading Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Iran lost its long-standing ally in Syria with the fall of Bashar al-Assad in December of 2024. A 12-day war with Israel in June of 2025, followed by U.S. strikes, destroyed key Iranian air defenses, missile forces, and nuclear infrastructure. The United Nations reimposed sanctions in September of 2025, and Trump's return to the White House revived maximum pressure policies that deepened Iran's isolation. Some intelligence analysts argue Iran may be entering the early stages of regime collapse. Analysts from the Hudson Institute, Brookings Institution, and Atlantic Council described the regime as weaker than at any point in its history, though others caution that the state retains the capacity for repression. Despite decades of unrest, unified opposition has remained elusive, and no significant defections from the security forces have occurred. The regime's coercive core, centered on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, remains intact and cohesive. The IRGC controls a substantial portion of Iran's economy, dominates intelligence and internal security through the Basij, and was created specifically to safeguard the Islamic Republic's ideological foundation. Its repeated use of lethal force against past protest movements demonstrates its willingness to preserve power at any cost. Experience suggests the IRGC will not defect and that protesters cannot defeat it alone. If Khomeini were to flee, that could alter the IRGC's resolve, but the more likely sequence is that the Ayatollah would not flee unless the IRGC either defects or is defeated. The primary wild card capable of tipping the balance would therefore be U.S. intervention or strategic strikes by the United States or its allies against the IRGC, senior security officials, or Khomeini himself. And that's why it's different, is because we both have, actual signs of regime collapse this time, and the protests aren't showing any signs of giving up. The protestors, and the opposition, etc., they have already taken some of the cities in Iran. By far, not all, but some of them, and they're making real progress, and their resolve seems set in. They're in it for the long haul. It seems. I may be wrong, but it's what it looks like to me. So I mean, they're gonna keep up the pressure from the inside of Iran, while sanctions and etc. from outside, and pressure from the United States, etc., continue from the outside. This regime may very well collapse, and Iran may fall back to the rightful rulers, the crown prince. But we'll just have to see how this plays out. We also have to see what, if anything, President Trump decides to do beyond the sanctions and the pressure and etc. You just there's a lot of variables, and we have to just watch and see what happens. In my opinion. All right, so let's move on. Let's see. Okay. So, all right, I want to talk to you a little bit about Zoran Mamdani. He is, quote, outraged after New York City Council staffer is detained by ICE for overstaying a visa and alleged assault. It's alleged. Okay. Let me get this out of the way here. There. A staffer for New York City's City Council was recently detained by federal agents because he overstayed his visa and is accused of assault. And Mayor Zoran Mamdani is spitting mad about this. Mamdani is angry for the same reason that people like Ilhan Omar are mad about ICE and deportations. They're mad because these are the people that they actually see as their constituents, not the American people, but people who are in the country illegally, who should have never been in this country in the first place. They do not seem to understand that this is exactly the message they are sending with their outrage. Breitbart News reported New York City's Zoran Mamdani, quote, outraged over detention of staffer accused of assault and overstaying visa. New York City's Democrat Socialist Zoran Mamdani is outraged over federal officials detaining a city council staffer after accused of overstaying his visa and after being involved in an assault case. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security identified the man as 53-year-old Rafael Andres Rubio Bohorquez. What a mouthful. Fox News reported on Monday. Mamdani addressed the situation in a social media post, writing, quote, "I am outraged." Well, that's where they got the idea. He might be outraged. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. To hear a New York City Council employee was detained in Nassau County by federal immigration officials at a routine immigration appointment. This is an assault on our democracy, on our city, and our values. I'm calling for his immediate release and will continue to monitor the situation. Let him go. Oh. However, federal officials said the man overstayed a 2017 tourist visa and was arrested in an assault case. So the two things you can't do. First off, can't be here on a visa and get arrested for literally anything. I mean, if you're in violation of the requirements of being a visa holder. So I mean, you can't be here on a visa and get arrested for literally anything. I mean, for real. And then secondly, it's a 2017 visa. How did this person, it was a tourist visa. It wasn't a come here and stay forever visa. And see, this person, if they needed to stay longer, could have gotten an extension on the visa or gotten another visa, one that allows longer stay. There are multiple different kinds of visas that these people can get if they want to be legal in the United States. That's, I mean, if I went to another country, say, France, Spain, Poland, wherever, I'm going to get my visa, and I'm going to make sure that, the amount of time that I need in that country is covered under that visa. And then once I'm there, if I need more time, I'm going to be, working to get an extension on the visa or change the visa to a different kind of visa that will allow me to stay longer. I'm not trying to be in violation of their immigration laws, but yet they're here in America by the millions and just don't give a crap about our laws. And that's the reason they need, one of the many, many reasons that they need to go, because they don't give a crap about our laws. They come here and, screw your laws, In a statement, New York City Council Speaker Julie Menin claimed, quote, he had legal authorization to remain in the country until October of this year. Obviously not. DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin said, quote, he had no legal right to be in the United States. Under Secretary Noem, criminal illegal aliens are not welcome in the United States. If you come to our country illegally and break our law, we will find you and we will arrest you. Okay, if you overstay your visa, you are now an illegal alien. If you overstay your visa and you get arrested, you are an illegal alien who is a criminal at that point. You're already a criminal for being illegal, but you're most definitely a criminal once you've been arrested. Because see, according to our immigration law, you can't do that. we have certain rules that you have to follow. You know, you can't do that. And right there is Mom Donnie's tweet that I read moments ago. The person in question was here on an expired 2017 tourist visa. What did he think was going to happen? Well, I can tell you what he thought was going to happen. He thought that it was going to be just fine and he could just continue staying here and he could do whatever he wanted, you know, and he could get arrested and get back out on the streets and get arrested again and, you know, just do all kinds of stuff and nothing would happen. That's what he thought. Because for so long, that's been the case. You now have a president and an administration that ain't tolerating that. You violate the laws, you got to go. You violate the rules of your visa, you got to go. You overstay your visa, you have got to go. See, you should have been knowing when your visa expired, and you should have been, before it expired, working to either get it extended or get a new visa, one that would allow you to stay the amount of time you needed to stay. Or you could try for a green card, or you could try for citizenship. You know, there are lots of options to do it the legal way. You know, if you truly want to be an American. But see, being an American comes along with some expectations of assimilation. You know, you must integrate yourself into our country by assimilating and becoming truly an American. All right, let's move on. Y'all feel free to jump in here with any opinions or thoughts or, you know, any knowledge that y'all might have about any of these stories that I'm presenting to you. You know, just jump right on in there. I don't mind. In fact, I love it. I feed off of y'all's energy when you get in the chat. So y'all just jump on in there. Up next, what liberal hack Jon Stewart suggests. He does sometimes. Sometimes he looks at just that right angle or gets that just that right, you know, look in his eye, and he does kind of look like a serial killer. You know, what you would imagine that a serial killer would look like, because I mean, serial killers are just ordinary people. You in your lifetime, you have had contact with at least 50 serial killers in your life from birth to death, and you never knew it. You know, because they're just people. You know, that's an average number. Somebody sat down and figured it up of, you know, how many estimated serial killers are at large at any one time versus, you know, the likelihood that you will have some contact with one of them or multiple of them, you know, et cetera. They did all that math and figured out that in an average lifetime of an American, you have had contact at some point or another with at least 50 serial killers in your lifetime and never knew it, because they're just normal people until that thing snaps in their head and they start killing folks. But anyway, liberal hack Jon Stewart suggests trying to run over an ICE agent was a, quote, small act of defiance. It was not small. It was most definitely an act of defiance. So in that he's correct, but it was not small. That's, attempting to murder somebody. That's firing a 2.5 ton missile at a human being, from just feet away, point blank range. Really? All right. It's amazing the lengths Jon Stewart will go in order to defend the left. During a recent episode of The Daily Show on Comedy Central, Stewart defended the actions of Renee Good by describing what she did as a, quote, small act of defiance. The woman aimed her 2,000-pound vehicle at an ICE agent and put her foot on the gas pedal. That is not a small act. It was a potentially deadly move for the ICE agent in front of her car, and it ended up being actually deadly for her. But Jon Stewart has to defend her because his audience demands it. The Post Millennial reports Jon Stewart says an activist driving a car at an officer is, quote, a small act of defiance. Comments by television host Jon Stewart are going viral online after he described attempting to run over a federal agent as a small act of defiance on the heels of the shooting of Renee Good in Minneapolis. The clip, shared widely on social media by several outlets, including Timcast News, shows Stewart talking about resistance to law enforcement during a broader conversation about protests and authority. In the clip, Stewart says, when I look at that video, I don't see both sides in a dogmatic stance. I see a woman, maybe naive, sitting in a car thinking she has to do something and she's going to block something, and a wildly extreme overreaction to that small act of defiance. And then, when they say, she was radicalized, I just think, well, there are masked gunmen in her neighborhood. No. There were masked law enforcement agents in her neighborhood because all law enforcement carries guns. See, you would not call your local PD a masked gunman. Okay? The SWAT team comes in, guns ablazing, they wear masks, but you still call them the SWAT team or the police. You do not call them masked gunmen. So, federal agents have to wear masks for the safety of themselves and their family because we have people such as this woman who try to kill them. They dox them and give their home addresses out to the public with the intention that someone is going to go try to hurt them and their families. Many ICE agents have threats to their selves, their significant others, their wives or husbands, whatever, and their children on a daily basis. Okay? So they have to conceal their identity for the safety of their families because of the violent left. And they want to claim that we're the violent ones. But because the violent left won't leave them alone and let them do their job like they did under Obama and just about every other president. Every president has had an ICE, a deportation force, getting rid of illegals. Only under Trump have we had such resistance to this constitutionally mandated job. They don't understand that if they weren't resisting so hard, if they weren't attacking ICE agents, if they weren't getting out there trying to block them, trying to run them over with cars, and all of that, you wouldn't even hardly notice them. One or two agents would show up at an illegal alien's house, take them to detention center, deport them, and it would be over. No one would even really notice. Just like it has always been. These are not masked gunmen. These are law enforcement agents. They are not kidnapping people or disappearing, as Ilhan Omar seems to suggest. Not seems to suggest. She actually outright said it, that ICE is, quote, disappearing people. No, they are not disappearing people. The people are not disappearing. Illegal aliens are going to an ICE detention facility where they're processed for deportation, and they are sent home. And if they can't go home, well, they can't stay here, so they got to pick another country to go to. Okay? American citizens who decide they want to attack ICE, that's a crime. Who want to interfere with ICE, that's a crime. Who want to block ICE from going down the street, from doing anything, that is a crime. These are crimes that these people are committing. It's not all fun and games in this world. When Renee Nicole Good was shot, her girlfriend or whatever she is heard on camera saying, "Why did you have real bullets?" She didn't think there would be real bullets. She thought it was fun and games. She thought it was all fun and games. It was going to be rubber bullets and paintballs and pepper balls and that kind of thing, and it was going to be a back and forth. No. At the point where you are threatening the life of an agent, you're taking your life in your hands, because at that point, it's not pepper balls and rubber bullets. It's not tear gas. It's not any of those things. It's you are probably going to die. And death is permanent. We can't undo death. There's not a save point that we can go back to and respawn. It doesn't work that way. Believe me, I wish it did. I would have gone back and started at the save point many times. Believe me. But these people they really honestly seem to think that it's all just fun and games. Renee Nicole Good's partner, they pulled up. I saw the longer video that actually showed when they first arrived to that location where the whole incident went down. And they pulled up, and she gets out with her her phone so she can film for social media. And that's what it was to them. It was a social media game. It was a game to get likes and clicks and followers and etc. on TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media they were on. It was a game to them. She got her little clips of her being, Peggy Badass, in front of the ICE agent while holding the camera. And when stuff started getting real, her demeanor changed really quick from being Peggy Badass, oh, it's my fault. Why did you have real bullets? Because I'm a law enforcement agent and you broke the law. Come on. All law enforcement carries a sidearm and it's got real bullets. That sidearm is there for a reason. Just in case someone decides to try to kill an agent. Or, hey, this woman could have decided to aim at a civilian and take out a civilian with that 2-ton missile. I mean, she obviously was not exactly right in the head. I'm sorry for going off on such a rant, but it really angers me when I what is going on, Patriot? I just noticed you in the chat. What's up? Awesome. Anyway, as I said, I'm sorry for going off on such a rant. I just get pissed off. Certain things, flip my switch and, kind of set me off a little bit. I apologize. Let's get back to the article. Quote, it didn't feel like I know what a terrorist attack looks like, referring to comments by the Department of Homeland Security that Good was a domestic terrorist. And here's the video, just so you can actually picture it in your head. You don't have to. It's right here in front of your eyes.
When I look at that video, I don't see both sides in a dogmatic stance. I see a woman, maybe naive, sitting in a car thinking she has to do something and she's going to block something, and a wildly extreme overreaction to that small act of defiance. And then like, I just, when they say like she was radicalized, I just think, well, there are masked gunmen in her neighborhood who she's read about taking 17-year-old kids and pulling them off the street. That wasn't, it didn't feel like, I know what a terrorist attack looks like.
Yeah. That was not a terrorist attack.
Right.
Well, it was an act of terrorism. It may not be a, quote, terrorist attack, as Jon Stewart wants to put it, but it was an act of terrorism. You can do an act of terrorism Because, see, terrorism is defined as instilling terror in a reasonable person. You know, so I would say that if I'm looking down the barrel of a 2-ton missile and it's coming at me, it was fired at me from point blank range, I'm experiencing a good bit of terror at that point. And I can guarantee you, if I had been in that agent's place, I can guarantee you I would have blown her away too. And I probably would have shot her partner too, for fear that the partner would try to attack me as well. Because it was her partner that told her to run me over. She saw where the agent was. She saw how the car was pointed. Right, Patriot? I think most people in their right mind, having a rational mind, would do the exact same thing. If they were in that agent's place and they had a sidearm on their side, I mean, he drew his gun when he saw her turn that car pointed directly at him. That's the point. If you watch the video, I can scroll back up and I can show the video. If you watch the video, he drew his gun when that car turned and pointed at him. He didn't fire until that car hit him. If you watch the video, he didn't fire until that car hit him. Then he fired directly into the windshield and 2 more shots into the window to try to neutralize the threat. Because at that point, she was a threat to him and everybody else around there. Oh. Yeah. Just amazing. If a conservative had tried to run over an employee of Planned Parenthood with their car, you think Jon Stewart would be defending that person and describing their actions as a, quote, small act of defiance? Not a chance. Not a chance. All right. Calm down. Get myself all worked up and whatnot. But some of this stuff just ticks me off. I can't help it. I'm human. At least so they tell me. Oh. Democrats are being warned not to say, quote, abolish ICE, because it's a losing political message. It's a losing political message. Who'd have thunk it? When the vast majority of the United States voted for ICE to get rid of these people, who'd have thought? Headphones are making my ears sweat and it's bugging me. I need some lighter headphones or something. I don't know. Oh, but anyway, who would have thought that when the vast majority of the United States voted for ICE to do this, Because that's what one of the many things that Donald Trump was promising. We voted for this. The vast majority, even Democrats voted for it. Think about it, because for us to get such a massive win as we did, a good bit of Democrats had to have voted along with us. So Democrats voted for this. Now, they'll probably never admit it. You know, they'll never admit that they voted for Trump. But the majority of the United States voted for ICE to be taking these people out of our country. So who would have thought that wanting to abolish ICE and saying abolish ICE and calling for the abolishing of ICE would be a losing political message? I'd have never thought of that. Democrats are being told not to say, quote, abolish ICE because it will hurt their chances in the midterms. Of course, they want to say it and they believe it. They even want to do it. But it's a losing political message and they know it. It's basically, quote, defund the police all over again. And even though they meant that one too, they know it damaged them politically. Saying, quote, abolish ICE simply reinforces the idea that Democrats care more about illegal aliens than they do about American citizens. A concept that they have done nothing to dispel in recent months. I haven't seen them do anything to dispel that concept ever. Unheard reports, as the Trump administration has ramped up immigration enforcement across the country, many Americans, especially Democrats, have grown outraged by the perception that ICE is acting with impunity. But as emotions run high, it's crucial that the party does not let the pendulum swing too far in the opposite direction. Troublingly, some are starting to embrace a familiar slogan, quote, abolish ICE. Now, I want to point something out. They are outraged by the perception. They perceive it to be a certain way, and they are outraged at their perception. Not reality, a perception. One Democratic polling analyst last week highlighted this trend in a piece provocatively titled, quote, support for abolishing ICE hits a new high. What, 3 people? A tracking poll shows that support for the idea has grown significantly since early 2025, reaching an 8-year high of 42%. What, 42% of extremists? While independents contributed to the shift, the majority of the change came from Democrats, of course. Support among them has surged from 40% on the day of Donald Trump's inauguration to 69% today. Exactly. Now, one thing I do need to clarify, though, but that is exactly true. But the majority of Obama's deportations, what made him the deporter in chief. Okay, what made him the deporter in chief was they were counting turnarounds at the border as deportations. Legitimately, they actually were. They would catch them at the border and turn them right around and send them back, and they would mark that down as a deportation, which I guess technically kind of it is, but you're not supposed to count the turnarounds. But now ICE was removing illegal aliens from the interior of our country during the Obama era, and nobody was up in arms about it. Nobody attacked ICE. Nobody even paid attention to ICE. They didn't even pay attention to the illegals being removed from the country during Obama's time as president. It's only and under no other president did the left act this way. Under no other president has the left acted this way in regards to immigration policy at all. Only under Trump. Okay. There's no difference in the methods that ICE uses. There's no difference, at all whatsoever. They're still doing the same thing that they've always done, just on a larger scale. There's no difference. The only difference is Donald Trump is president. That's it. It's TDS on the largest scale you can possibly have it. And when you sit a Trump deranged person down and you show them all the proof that all their little arguments that Trump is so bad, is debunked, and you show them in front of their face, and then ask them, now, having been shown that everything that you've said about Donald Trump is not true, why is Trump the only president that has gotten such hatred from the left? Even Republican presidents in the past have not gotten the hatred that Donald Trump gets. Do I know why? I'll tell you why. Even the everyday working person Democrat doesn't realize why they're so against Trump. Okay, they don't realize why the powers that be on the left are so insistent that Trump is evil. It's because Trump was a lifelong Democrat. He was the darling of the Democrats. They all loved him. They were all friends with him. That's why when he talks about one of the Democrats, I know him pretty well, because he does. They were all good friends. They all hung out. They all partied together. They were all at Donald Trump's, award ceremonies when he received all kinds of awards from all kinds of different organizations and etc. Especially the minority organizations giving him awards and whatnot. But he was a lifelong Democrat. And he even told Oprah Winfrey, when she asked him if he would run for president, he told her not unless, he said no at first. But then he clarified. He said, not unless I felt that I needed to. Not unless this country was in such bad trouble that I felt I needed to save the country. She asked him, well, okay. Well, if that was the case, if you were running for president, what party would you run under? He said, Democrat, of course. He was a lifelong dedicated Democrat. Until he wasn't. Until he came down that escalator and announced he was running for president under the Republican Party. See, he turned his back on him. But he didn't. But he did. See, his values and beliefs never changed. It was the values and beliefs of the Democrat Party that changed. He went with the party that more closely resembled his values and beliefs. And that's the Republican Party. They see him as a traitor to the Democrat Party. That's why they hate him so bad. But anyway, let's get back. I got off on a tangent there. Let's get back to the article. Still, it's likely that this slogan will gain further traction if reports of ICE brutality continue. Republicans, in turn, are poised to seize on it by portraying Democrats as extremists in the run-up to this year's midterm elections. Although Democrats are well positioned for victory in November, the spread of this sentiment within the party, even if confined to its base, could introduce an unnecessary risk to their efforts to both regain control and impose a substantive check on the president. Isn't it amazing that Democrats have to hide their true intentions from the American people in order to appeal to voters? I've said that for a long time. You shouldn't have to hide what you truly believe from the American people in order to appeal to your voters. See, they are lying to Democrats and Republicans and independents alike. Because they don't want you to know what they really want. What they really, really want. They don't want you to know. Of course, some Democrats just can't help themselves. And you have an example of that right here.
ICE cannot be formed. This has nothing to do with training.
Really? Really?
Protocols. This is about cultural practices that have been underway for many years. And again, not only the brutality and the constitutional abuses of ICE in our streets, but what is happening in our ICE facilities where people are being detained and warehoused, and many of them unlawfully. We have had over 30 deaths in ICE facilities just in this recent span, not to mention how pregnant women that are detained, how they've been treated. So I believe in doing that radical work and getting to the root cause of things. Again, Congress has the power of the purse and appropriations. We need to use it in this moment because this harm is coming for everyone. It is sowing chaos and terror in our streets. And How did we get here? Well, Donald Trump is in the Oval Office. He is a dictator. He claims to care that he's about public safety and that these actions are being done in the name of public safety. Are you feeling more safe?
Yes.
I don't know anyone feeling more safe. People are feeling less safe and more threatened by the probability of state-sanctioned violence.
No, it's Democrat-sanctioned violence. All the violence is on the left. But see, they can't help themselves. You see right here, ICE cannot be reformed. It must be abolished. You know, and these four people here agree on that. All these Democrats are worried about is losing their illegal alien voters. That's it. That's it. So they can't get the votes without cheating, without bringing in outside help. See, they're counting on all these illegals that they brought in and given all the freebies to and tried to fast track them becoming citizens and all this. They're counting on, because they did that for the illegals. The illegals are going to vote for them the minute they're able to vote. They're counting on that. And many of them have already been voting. We see evidence of that left and right. You know, every time I turn around, I'm seeing reports, you know, where we found evidence that illegals were actually voting in the elections. Illegals actually voted in the presidential election. Yeah, we've got evidence. So, all right, let's move on. Oh. Oh. All right. Here we go. GOP lawmakers initiate contempt of Congress proceedings against Bill Clinton. Comer. Well, I mean, is anything going to come from that? You know, I doubt it, but whatever. They defied Congress, and, well, I expect Congress to do something about it, but most of what Congress does is performative. House Oversight Chairman James Comer on Tuesday announced lawmakers will initiate contempt of Congress proceedings against Bill Clinton after he defied a subpoena to testify in the Epstein investigation. Former President Bill Clinton was scheduled to appear for a closed-door deposition on Tuesday. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was set to appear for a closed-door deposition on Wednesday. And Bill Clinton was a no-show on Tuesday. And, well, you know, of course, Hillary, she ain't going to show up. The Clintons claim that they already provided the committee with all of the information they have on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And
we will go on the record. Good morning. This is a deposition of former President William J. Clinton conducted by the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. On July 23rd, 2025, the Subcommittee on Federal Law Enforcement unanimously voted to approve a motion directing the committee to authorize and issue a subpoena to former President Clinton for a deposition. I'm going to note for the record that former President Clinton is not present. The time is 10:07. We're going to mark items for the record. We will mark as Exhibit 1, a cover letter from Chairman Comer dated August 5th, 2025, enclosing the deposition subpoena and email confirmation from former President Clinton's attorney, David Kendall, accepting the letter and the subpoena. We will mark as Exhibit 8, a letter dated December 15th, 2025, from Chairman Comer to Mr. Kendall, again urging his clients to appear and referencing that failure to appear will initiate the prospect of contempt proceedings. The letter also encloses the updated deposition subpoena for today's date and email confirmation from Mr. Kendall accepting the letter and subpoena. I will note that the time is now 10:10 and former President Clinton has still not appeared. Does the chairman wish to add anything to the record?
Yes. It's a shame President Clinton failed to appear in accordance with our duly authorized congressional subpoena. This subpoena, I might add, was voted on by the Oversight Committee in a bipartisan fashion. The Oversight Committee will now initiate contempt of Congress proceedings against the former president for defying the law.
What lies are you speaking of? I mean, Congress people lie all the time, but what you're obviously speaking of particular lies. So what lies are you talking about? Patriot. The last segment. You mean the last talking about the abolish ICE thing? It would be, a lot more interesting if they had to be honest about, what they're trying to do. If it was required for them to be honest about what they're trying to do. Right. Well, the thing is, she was mixing lies and the truth, but the truth part was the part that we were trying to highlight. The truth that they want to abolish ICE, even though they're kind of trying to hide that from their voter base and the American people. Certain ones of them can't keep their mouths shut. They just have to talk about abolishing ICE, and that was the whole point of that. But yes, she was mixing lies with the truth and etc. And it would be it would make politics a whole lot more interesting if they actually had to be honest 100%. If there was somehow that we could out them immediately when they lie, have a some sort of detection device that they have to speak into anytime they're speaking to the news or to the public, and force them to tell the truth all of the time. That would be a very, very interesting political atmosphere. So we would always know their intentions. That would be quite interesting. Later Tuesday, Comer said lawmakers are initiating contempt proceedings to hold Bill Clinton accountable. Quote, Oversight Committee Republicans and Democrats unanimously approved a subpoena for Bill Clinton as part of the Epstein investigation, Comer said. After 5 months of good faith negotiations, President Clinton has refused to comply, Comer said. We are now initiating contempt of Congress proceedings, Comer added. And this is the Post announcing that, and again, a replay of the Clinton deposition, if you want to call it that. Comer said he scheduled an oversight committee markup for Wednesday, January 21st, to hold Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress for defying a, quote, lawful bipartisan subpoena. Representative James Comer posted on X, update, I have scheduled an oversight committee markup for Wednesday, January 21st, to hold President Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress for defying a lawful bipartisan subpoena. If Hillary Clinton fails to appear tomorrow, she will also be held in contempt.
All right, Bill and Hillary Clinton have refused to appear before two House Oversight Committee to testify as part of their investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. In an 8-page letter to Chairman Comer, Clinton's lawyers said they, quote, have already provided the limited information they possess about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. They called the effort, quote, nothing more than a ploy and attempt to embarrass Trump's political rivals. Chairman Comer spoke to reporters outside the hearing room where Bill Clinton was due to testify earlier today and laid out what is coming next. Take a look.
As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
All right, so Chairman Comer joins us now. Is it true that Peter Navarro was held in contempt and he went to prison, and Steve Bannon held in contempt and he went to prison? Did that happen in those cases?
100%. When Democrats subpoenaed Republicans and the Republicans didn't show, they held them in contempt, and the Department of Justice prosecuted them.
And do we have 17 chronicled examples of Jeffrey Epstein visiting Bill Clinton when he was president of our country?
Yes, Sean. When Bill Clinton was president, Jeffrey Epstein went to the White House 17 times. And then post-presidency, Bill Clinton flew on Jeffrey Epstein's plane at least 27 times. So that shows they were close. Again, no one's accusing Bill Clinton of any wrongdoing. We just have questions. And the Democrats in Congress, they've gone, all full war mode on trying to get people in to talk about Epstein. But when it came to Bill Clinton, initially the Democrats voted for the subpoena and they said, yeah, we want to hear from Bill Clinton too. Today they were a no-show. They didn't even come to the deposition, and they're all running and evading reporters who, quite surprisingly, the mainstream media has been pretty critical that Bill Clinton didn't show up for this subpoena.
And just as a matter of reference, didn't Donald Trump throw Epstein out of his club some 25 years ago because of his behavior with young women that he found inappropriate?
Yes,
if somebody had
Trump,
incriminating information on Donald Trump, would he so publicly in a town like Palm Beach, where social circles, I guess, matter to a lot of people, would he publicly do that if he had incriminating information?
Yeah, look, Donald Trump has answered thousands of questions from the American public and from the media about Epstein. To my knowledge, Bill Clinton hasn't answered any questions. And what he said in that letter, he's provided us his information about his knowledge of Epstein. He didn't provide hardly any information for someone that allowed Epstein to go to the White House 17 times while he was president and then fly on his plane 27 times. So we have questions. If anyone in America is interested in Epstein and getting to the truth about what really happened and who needs to be held accountable and how the government failed the victims, then Bill Clinton is someone that would be a person of interest, whether you're a Republican or Democrat.
Well, I find this so interesting because there are a lot of so-called people that claim to be conservatives, only when it's convenient, in my view, demanding Donald Trump. Joe Biden had access to this information. He never released it. But I'm seeing pictures of Bill Clinton all over the place with young women in a hot tub, mystery women sitting on his lap in Jeffrey Epstein's plane, swimming in a pool with a woman that looks pretty naked to me, Ghislaine Maxwell and somebody else. I think he has some explaining to do, considering so many people wanted Donald Trump to answer. No?
You're exactly right. The American people are interested in this. They want to know the truth. We're trying to provide the truth on the Oversight Committee. This subpoena wasn't just issued by me. It was voted on unanimously by the Oversight Committee. Every Democrat in that committee voted for this subpoena. So the President Clinton is not telling the truth when he says this is partisan. This is a bipartisan subpoena.
All right. Donald Trump never flew on the plane, from what I understand, either.
He flew on the plane, just not to the island. But the American people do want the truth. And one way or the other, we will get it. Marilyn, if Bill could have kept it in his pants, he wouldn't have to appear before Congress. That is exactly correct. But anyway, I just got the link to go over to Killer Carl's podcast. So you all do me a favor. Those of you on Rumble, follow me over there. Those of you on YouTube, get you a Rumble account and follow me over there. And this has been Big Tony Speaks. And I'm Big Tony. Join me next time for more Big Tony Speaks. We may continue this episode. We'll see. Follow me over there. I'm out of here. Y'all have a great one.